The reversal is here. It's right in front of our faces. And as you can see on the chart in the background, it is actually not for Bitcoin. We are looking at the dollar index right here. Dixie is a symbol, and it represents the dollar strength versus other currencies, to be fair, but has been a pretty damn good barometer as far as macro moves, certainly not micro moves, but macro moves in the past. And I wanted to point out a few similarities to past occurrences that we have seen that relate to Bitcoin and also maybe even traditional markets as well. In fact, maybe even more so in traditional markets, as those are nearly at new all-time highs. Amazing. We're in the wrong market right now. But what I wanted to point out is a continuation of this Dixie analysis. We did point out that earlier this month that this month was very likely to be a reversal month, and I do believe that that is slowly coming to fruition here, most importantly denoted by the lower low than last month's doji low. Thus, this sort of setup right here is indicative of certainly a loss of momentum and very likely a pending reversal. Now, of course, on the monthly, which we have another 10 days left actually in the month, so we're getting close to the end here. We do officially want to see a closure below the last month's low, which is 106.969, which it's pretty much at right now. But any sort of a closure below there would certainly confirm it for me, and I do think that it is more or less a formality. Of course, we did identify that there was a regular head and shoulders here on the 5-day RSI, which of course, I care a lot more about patterns on RSI than I do on price action, and we can see that it is getting follow through here, essentially confirming on this current 5-day closure, which is closing actually tomorrow. But again, I do think that this is a formality here, and the reason why I point this out is because it can give us a bit of an indication as to where the implied target will be. We at least want to see RSI come down to this measured move right here, which would essentially put it right back around the 50%. Sorry, not 50%, but the 50 level here for the RSI, which is kind of like a good reset region, at least in the short/medium term, which I expect will be hit probably by end of month. So, that does provide a bit of a tailwind for risk assets. Again, the idea is when the dollar strength is falling, risk assets which trade against the dollar naturally go up. Thus, your price appreciation is mostly due to fluctuations in the dollar, not in actual appreciations of the underlying technologies. But that's a topic for another thing. In fact, a topic that we'll never cover on this anyways, because we're looking at price, not fundamentals. I'll leave that to someone else because, well, good luck. Anyways, I should also note that momentum oscillators on pretty much every time frame under a monthly are turning down. Here's your weekly time frame stochastic oscillator for Dixie, which is going to be pointed down as long as it's below 109.77. 10-day is also going to be loading, actually, is what it's going to be. I don't know why this one takes so long, but pointed down freshly on this next closure, which happens tomorrow, assuming that it does remain below 108.5. I would say that that's very likely. 5-day obviously is going to be down. 3-day, 2-day daily are obviously going to be down as well, with some short-term bounces in between. But for whatever reason, this one takes a long time to kind of load right here. But I wanted to now go over, 5-day below 109.5. I wanted to go over the monthly. So again, one, if we do see it close below last month, so I think that is, very likely. I mean, that is a confirmation by definition. And, we are seeing a major swing high right here. And even if you're the biggest bull on Dixie, you'd have to be looking for, another downside move, ultimately resulting in a higher low. But, it would be another downside move nonetheless, which again does provide that tailwind for risk assets, or traditionally does. But what I'm going to do here is I want to actually go back to just something really random that I saw. This was just a weird idea that I had that I didn't expect to find much out of, but perhaps you'll find it interesting. And what I've done here is I marked off the last time that Trump became president. And that is the green vertical bar right here. And it is eerily similar to kind of what we're seeing right now, actually, in terms of one, major moving averages. You can see, I almost said Bitcoin, but Dixie was floating around that red 5 exponential moving average, same shit over here. And the stochastic oscillator was essentially in the exact same position as well, almost to the month, in fact. In fact, we will see from the projection, the forecast on the advanced stochastic right here, that coming into February, it actually will be at that exact same level. Just a weird, interesting thing, or at least I think it's interesting, but maybe I'm just a fucking nerd. In fact, I probably am. But you get the point. So for right now, this will remain to the upside on the monthly, especially as long as Bitcoin's above 101.64. But I'm curious to see where this pivot comes in next month, because if we do see it again pop to the same level and then have the potential to turn down, I'd look at that as a really good indication that this is, the biggest bulls who are even still looking for downside here, they're going to be wrong, and you're going to see this move probably come all the way back down. I'd expect to 102 region. Again, that's going to take some time, but that does provide a nice backdrop for risk assets. Doesn't provide the guarantee that risk assets will rally. But of course, today's a slow day, so we have to look at nonsense like this. No, not nonsense like this, but just, corollaries like this. As always, I prefer to look at Bitcoin price action, but do understand that do understand that, of course, the asset that you're trading at hand is more important to be looking at than something like this. But it can give some clues, of course. And I did think that again was interesting, and perhaps you do as well. And if I go over here, or did I want to mention anything over here? It was somewhere in, from this perspective as well. Anyways, we'll move on from there. I do want to say that despite all of this going on in the background, stocks basically at all-time highs, or at least the tech sector, which is what we only care about, of course, because that's what drives everything, or seems to drive everything. The short term still, as we've been saying since last week, very likely to have another test to the downside, at least towards the $93,000-ish region. But with that backdrop in mind, I do really think that this is, setting up to be a very nice picture for the Bitcoin BULAs coming into March, I guess, or maybe even the very end of this month. Again, February is traditionally quite good for Bitcoin. Obviously, thus far it's been nothing for Bitcoin. I guess it's been slightly bad, if anything. But again, I want to call back to yesterday's analysis, and something that will continue to update, but that's the hash ribbons indicator. We won't show it on this video because there's just nothing new. But until that buy signal comes in on that indicator, I personally would hold off on potentially getting into any long-term long positions, something like that. But of course, that, as we went over yesterday, is projected to happen within 5-ish days. But again, that can change depending upon where Bitcoin price action is. But in the meantime, we do have this set up here with the red 5 exponential moving average cross to the downside of the yellow 21 exponential average, which over the past 5 years has every time that's happened has led to at least a test to the green moving average, which again is the 55, and that's a minimum target. In many cases we've seen it drop below, but we wouldn't really be expecting too much below there, I guess, if this is going to be indeed bullish, because Bitcoin as of right now still does have a higher low. So it could very well be that in the short term, maybe before this week finishes, we see a wick down here, and then it pops back up, maybe even same day or the next day, and you see it's back above about 95, 96 especially. That would start to look pretty damn good for the setup that I'm anticipating, or at least heavily considering in the background here. Of course, we backtest this as well with the Quant Prime service. By the way, for all the people who have been asking about the Quant Prime, just wait a few weeks to buy, I promise, because you'll get a nice discount, and most importantly, that just saves you a few bucks. Anyways, if we go over the full history of Bitcoin, it has about a 71.5% strike rate for at least a move down to the green 55. So, very, very high probability here, which is why I don't want to bet against that until we very obviously see that buy signal on the hash ribbons indicator. So that's kind of like the puzzle that's ongoing in the background. This has taken, gargantuan amount of patience here. Basically, since we came to America, Bitcoin has literally been sideways as fuck. Like literally, starting the day right here, it's actually on this red vertical bar. Starting that day, it has been boring as fuck. Boring as fuck, which is probably good for me because I don't want to be missing too much action. But yeah, by the way, if you didn't catch it, I posted a community poll on this channel for, asking about your preference for times of videos. And it seems like there's one very common thread. Before US market would be best, whether that's, much before or just even a little bit before, but before US market seems to be the best for many people. So or US markets open. So we'll definitely be going back to Finland quite soon. But if we do end up moving here, then I guess, we could do the live streams at, 8:39 a.m. Eastern time would be kind of cool. Anyways, on the topic of short-term downside, again, still daily time frame, stochastic momentum, freshly crossing the downside. Will be remaining with downside pressure as long as Bitcoin's below 96,500, which it is right now. It's a long day left to go, obviously, but just something to be aware of. And again, just caution in the short term. I'm not saying that this is the best time, the best exact moment right here. In fact, you even see the daily HPDR median rejecting price, at least for now, as long as Bitcoin's below there. More likely to kind of fill this downside space. And what do you know? The 30/2 level is around that $93,000 region. So I still like that area in the short term, especially as long as Bitcoin's below last Friday's high. That's a nice little line in the sand right there. As long as it's below last Friday's high, short term, very likely to trade a little bit to the downside, or at least a little bit to the downside. Hopefully. Now, people have also asked, what could be bearish about this, with that signal happening or likely happening in the background? Well, here's the thing. What if the hash rate indicator takes like a long time to print that buy signal? Well, until it actually prints that buy signal, there is obviously a threat, and I think a low probability situation, but it does exist, that Bitcoin comes down and then continues down more, and then you don't get the blue buy signal until Bitcoin's down like fucking 10, 15, 20%. It's possible, I guess. I do think that is less likely though. But yeah, just to acknowledge what those people have been asking, I guess that would be the situation. Again, that's why I put a lot of importance and a lot of significance on waiting for that signal, but understanding the sort of puzzle pieces in the background right now that are kind of formulating so that when it actually does occur, well, I can take action. You can do whatever the fuck you want. Anyways, I think that's a good place for me to be leaving off on this video. We're actually leaving Tampa today and heading off to a new city. So we'll be speaking soon from a new destination. And with that said, I want to wish you the best as always. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully tomorrow.